What is up, diehards? Wes Monell in the building for AWOL Sports. Drew Lacuesta in the house. Thanks for hanging out with us. This is a 2020 NFL season preview, our projections for every division, first through last with records. When we look at the schedule, if we give one team a win, we cross-reference that by giving the other team a loss. So we keep track here. That's how it should go, and that's how we roll. The AFC North. Baltimore took the league by storm, rushing for the most yards in a single season in NFL history, over 3,000 yards. Lamar Jackson ran for 1,200 himself while tossing a league-high 37 touchdowns. Yes, Pat Mahomes threw 36 and missed a couple games, but come on, it's impressive nonetheless, hence the MVP. They pounded everyone on the ground, leading the league in scoring, touchdowns, and they were third on third downs with the third fewest points allowed with that recipe. It works, guys. It works. The issue when you play that way and with people like me waiting for Jackson to improve and develop, when asked to throw first and to play from behind, it throws off their groove. Calais Campbell and Patrick Queen, yes, they beef up the front seven on the other side. The corners, they get in your grill. Who doesn't love that cornerback tandem? I know we're a pair of secondary fans over here. Me and you, Drew, we love DBs. Thing is, man, I can't gloss over their playoff losses to the Chargers and the Titans. They were slugfest. And then the two regular season losses last year, I know there were only two, but they got outscored by the Browns and the Chiefs in a couple of shootouts. There's a blueprint that I see creeping into this season. I still have them in the playoffs, just not a repeat dominant performance. I have them going 9-7. You think they continue to rock and roll to the first seed, going 13-3, right?
Yeah, man. I had Baltimore at 13-3 again up into the last minute. I took them to the wire. I gave them an extra loss just in case, but that loss was week 17 when I think they'll be resting starters. So 12-4. Just to be fair, at Cincy, resting everybody because they already locked up that number one seed. But the trend, man, the trend's up. So Lamar he seems to be keeping that chip on his shoulder. Even with all the hype, even with the MVP, he's still willing to improve and take it upon himself and put the team on his back. So I think this is all good things. Just like you said, man, offense unmatched. And they got better. So offensively, one of my favorite, I'm an Ohio State fan. A lot of my family went to Ohio State, so they add J.K. Dobbins onto the roster. You're talking about one of the best option running backs in college football history. This guy's balance is insane. He carried the rock inside, outside, long runs, short yardage, touchdown machine, and they don't even need him. They got Lamar for that, but at the same time, if we worry about Lamar's health running the ball, they have somebody else that they can rely on. Mark Ingram, not really known for missing too many games. They still got plenty of running backs in the backfield, but J.K. Dobbins just puts an A-plus stamp on top of that already hyped backfield. I think it's going to be crazy. I think Ingram's going to ball. I think J.K. eventually is going to take over and going to ball. He's already used to this offense. The short camp's not going to affect him. He's one of the biggest reasons I think that this offense stays hot defensively, just like you said. Michael Pierce, big part of the defense. He's opting out. So they still have a lot of great pieces, and they added Calais Campbell, like you said, one of the best run stuffers, one of the best pass rushers. He's fired up to be with a winning organization. He's fired up to try and win a Super Bowl. He's going to put it all on the field. So I like that offense. They're going to score just as much as they did last year. I don't know about more. Obviously, they were 14-2 last year. I have them slowing down just a little bit. I think Cleveland is going to give them a run for their money, not because of Baker, but because they have a stacked roster. They were actually the ones who started that 6-7 DBs on the field to slow down Lamar Jackson, and it worked. Like you said, they were outscored. And Chargers, the first time they met the Chargers in the playoffs, Chargers copied it. They did the same thing in 2018, put 6-7 DBs on the field that can tackle, and Lamar had a tough time. So I think there is, like you said, a blueprint out there, but I think now with the addition of J.K. Dobbins, they'll have a lot of other things to add on the offense. I think Greg Roman's one of the better play designers in the league. He did it with Colin Kaepernick, and Kaepernick struggled, and the Niners struggled for a little bit before Shanahan without Greg Roman. So now I think the defense is primed. I know they lost Earl Thomas, but at the same time, that was a player vote. That was a player vote to get Earl Thomas out of there, and they did it without thinking twice. He's gone. I think that's a virus off the team. But their secondary is still stacked, like you said, two great tandem corners that I really love. Peters used to be a Ram. Obviously, I saw that move, but we got Ramsey. Ramsey's in for one of the biggest contracts, so I'm pretty happy there. But I like Peters a lot. I think he plays with a chip on his shoulder too, and he's going to be tough. He's going to be tough for teams to come back against since they're going to be putting up so many points. So division. Jackson's 6-1, man. He's controlling this division. He's 19-3 in his career in this division. They have the easiest schedule, and that's crazy. Apart from having the easiest schedule, they're home a lot, and they don't really travel. So they don't really go too far off the East Coast. So I really see them having. I don't really see them having a tough time. Again, they're going to rest the starters in Week 17. I think they take the number 1 seed for the playoffs. And we're gonna be all systems go there.
All fair points, man. Look, I see their schedule, and I'm taking the first 8 weeks with a grain of salt, to be honest with you. The stretch I'm looking at is weeks 9 through 14. The Colts, Patriots, Titans, Steelers, Cowboys, and the rival Browns. Man, that's a tough stretch. That will show me who the Ravens are in 2020, if they are, in fact, for real, or if they're, kind of pretending. And, I'm not going overboard. I still have them in the playoffs. You have them in the playoffs. I just have a few less wins here. I think they come down to earth. I just see a blueprint and haven't seen others avoid it, such as Michael Vick, RG3. He got figured out after a year and a few games the following year. I have to see it to believe it. It's not that I'm rooting against it. And I know he threw for all those touchdowns, but like everybody knows that no one wants to hear, they couldn't play from behind. And when you asked him to pass first, it just didn't really happen when he needed to do it. So, again, we both had the Ravens in the playoffs. I'm just tailoring my expectations. Drew, I love it. You think they're going to continue to roll, and it's different football. It's fantastic, and it's exciting. So it's not that I'm rooting against it at all. Sliding over to the black and yellow, the Pittsburgh Steelers, injury-riddled year. But you know what? That's 2 consecutive seasons missing the playoffs now. It's like they haven't recovered from the Jaguars' loss where they were one and done in 2017. But, man, who doesn't love this defense? They got away from being a defensive team for a few years. They found their way back to their type of Steeler football. We know their O-line has been rock steady. They have an aging QB coming back from elbow surgery, throwing to 4 unproven receivers. A former first-round tight end in Eric Ebron, we were just talking about him off the air, he finally has found his niche in the red zone. Yet they're handing the ball off to a running back that's missed 11 games in 3 seasons. Maybe the trio of backs they have behind him, maybe they can still get it done anyway if Connor does go down. An elite defense with a young offense, I expect them to be in the hunt for a playoff spot. I have them just missing out at 9-7 due to a tiebreaker. You put them at 10-6?
Yes, sir. 10-6. And to think, that's really not too much to ask from last year. Last year, if you were watching, I know there's a lot of Steeler fans out there, so I know you were. That was some of the worst quarterback play that we've probably seen collectively without Big Ben. Guess what? They still went 8-8. They had a chance in the final weeks to make the playoffs too. So asking for 2 extra wins with Big Ben, I think that's pretty fair. So hey, he's back. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks, to be honest. Before 2019, obviously with the injury, he made the playoffs the last 4 out of the 5 years. I know you talked about Jacksonville. I know that's one of the things that we knock about Pittsburgh. Seems to always play to the competition, right? So Definitely love to see them get over the hump. I think now with this young, star-studded defense, I think they get over that hump and they start playing playoff football. So 8-8, got to praise them there. Offense, bottom three in almost every pass category. Bottom four for rushing too, but the defense, man, held it down. Second in interceptions. Quarterbacks against the Steeler defense, they had the fourth worst quarterback rating, and they had the most sacks in the league too. So they can make it happen. Biggest threat, obviously, is Baltimore. But if you think back to that Baltimore game, even without Big Ben, they had the lead in that fourth quarter. Baltimore had to go to overtime to beat them. Ravens actually didn't score a touchdown the last 42 minutes. And you're talking about the best scoring offense. So, I mean, this defense isn't just good. They're one of the best. I think they're top three. And they still have their core. You got Tuitt, you got Hayward, you got TJ Watt, you got Devin Bush. Minka's going to have a whole offseason to prepare and be ready to be a leader on this team. Like you mentioned, Eric Ebron, another red zone target. I really, really like Notre Dame's Chase Claypool now with the Steelers. You're talking about a 6'4" frame, and he ran a 4.4. So, I mean, size and speed. I know Roethlisberger can make magic out of that. Big Ben in this division, man, is surgical, 59-19. Against Baltimore the last 3 years, so we know Lamar's in that bunch a little bit. He's 4-2 against Cleveland, 3-0-1 against Cincy the last 3 years. Has not lost. All right, they have one of the easiest schedules in the league. They're at home a lot. They got Houston, Philly, and Indy at home. When they do go on the road, it's going to be tough against Tennessee. I think Dallas. I have question marks about Dallas, so I think they take that game in Dallas also. Buffalo might be tough, but I think that's a toss-up game too. Finally, I see Big Ben with an even bigger chip on his shoulder. I think he comes out, guns blazing, with or without Connor. I think this offense does its part to at least help the defense out to get those 2 extra wins. I have them as a 6 seed.
That's a good point. The offense only has to do just enough. We both love that defense just like everybody else does. I'm just not entirely sold that the offense will. I mean, I'm kind of on the fence when you look at the record. I mean, I gave them 9-7, and that's tying some other teams I put in the playoff picture, tying the Cleveland Browns, tying the Baltimore Ravens in my playoff picture. I had them all at 9-7, and the Steelers just losing that playoff spot due to tiebreaker. So it's not like I'm totally off on them. I just have questions about Big Ben. We've seen Phillip Rivers go down the drain, out of town. Eli Manning finally retires. So it can happen to Big Ben. I'm not rooting for that. I'm a huge Ben fan. I have him in fantasy again this year because I think he's going to throw till his arm falls off. Pretty much, it's like they say till the wheels fall off. Well, as a quarterback, till the arms fall off. And for Pittsburgh, as a team, the meat of their schedule, you touched on it, weeks 3 through 8. They have a bye sprinkled in week 7, but 3 through 8, they have the Texans, the Titans, the Eagles, all made the playoffs last year. The Browns, the Ravens, a couple rivals, and then the bye. And then you mentioned you think they'll take that Dallas game. That's another playoff hopeful. Not easy in the middle of the season. Outside of that, yeah, you have a point. A lot more winnable games. But, that's why you have them in and I don't. So, all right, man. The Cleveland Browns, they really needed last year. They traded for Odell Beckham, signed Kareem Hunt, got some excitement. Well, now I know they have an inexperienced head coach and D coordinator, but those are coaches that come from winning teams that were in the playoffs last year. San Francisco and Minnesota. It's an improved O-line that looks top tier on paper. PFF ranks them one behind the Ravens, both in the top 7. They had 2 receivers hit 1,000 yards, 2 running backs that can start on almost pretty much everywhere else in the league, 2 good tight ends. They signed Hooper, 3 if you ask them, the guy they drafted. And to me, the best young cornerback tandem in the league. They're greedy, so to speak. So they just paid Myles Garrett, man. I know how much you love him, and he's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate for a reason. They didn't stop the run as well last year. They weren't that great on third downs on either side of the ball, that's the next step in their development. Winning key situations in games is how a young team learns to win games in general. So I think the division is completely up for grabs. It's a dogfight where I have them at 9-7, as I stated, and sifting through, the schedules and tiebreakers. That's how I came out, giving them the edge over the Steelers. It wasn't just, oh, I like Cleveland more, let me give it to Cleveland. Nothing like that. You're thinking not as high as me. A couple games lower at 7-9, out of the playoff picture.
That's right, man. I think they just miss it again. It's really hard not to like this team. It seems like they have everything, right? And you mentioned, man, two of everything, right? It's Baker's arc, I guess. Two of everything: tight ends, receivers, running backs. Even their own line has improved, right? So the only missing piece. I honestly watched a lot of Baker's games in college. I watched a lot of him in the NFL. There's just something about his play that I just don't like. And I know a lot of guys like him, and they say he's accurate. They say he has a good enough arm. I'm just a little bit under everyone's take on Baker Mayfield. And maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just what I see. But, I mean, with the help of this roster, if they do it right, I could see them inching into the playoffs. It's just kind of hard, like you said, new head coach. He's coached multiple offensive positions, but he was a 1-year OC in Minnesota before he got the head coach job. So from 18 to 19 scoring with Stefanski for the Vikings, after 1 year, he went from 19th in scoring to 8th, right? That's a great progress right there, but nothing else really improved. Rushing was up a little bit, but obviously Dalvin was hurt in 18, not hurt in 19, so that has to play a big part. It's really tough to say for me for a 1-year sample size. Also, Alex Van Pelt is an OC. I know obviously he'll be working side by side with Stefanski, but he was the quarterback coach for Green Bay and Cincy. So a couple of first-timers here, not too much on a previous resume, but the roster is stacked, man. I do love the roster, like you mentioned, greedy, and one of my favorite corners in the league, like you mentioned, from Ohio State, Denzel Ward, who already has a Pro Bowl at his young age. Ballers, man. Supreme ballers. The only thing I do see on this defense, though, Joe Schobert. They lost Joe Schobert to Jacksonville. He's a tackling machine, an all-pro tackling machine. Looks like they're trying to do it through the draft. The things I like, they definitely got another red zone, big body weapon, Austin Hooper. So it's up to Baker. It's really what I see, man. It's up to Baker to make sure the ball gets there. We've seen OBJ cause some drama in the past. Does it happen again after a second disappointing season? If they don't get off to a fast start, man, that could be a upside-down locker room, especially with their expectations. I know Baker's not talking a lot this offseason, but still, everyone has got to think with this roster, they've got to be up 2-3 wins before the half of the season, or else this could go real sideways. I'm kind of baking on it to go a little sideways, close to wins, but not coming out with a W. Baker's 6-5 in this division. He splits with Baltimore, losing record against Pittsburgh, but he does. I mean, not really that hard to have a winning record against Cincy, but he's 3-1. I do like their schedule. One of the easiest schedules in the NFL. It's just Pittsburgh, man, is coming up. Baltimore is coming up. And in those games, at Dallas, at Tennessee, those are tough, man. I really don't see any possibility where they outscore Dallas or outmuscle Tennessee, especially now with Clowney signing over there. Clowney's going to be playing the same side that Baker loves to run to. That's going to cause them some trouble. Even their home games, Indy, Houston, Philly, I really don't like, man. So I have them at 7-9, third in the division. I think they miss it again. It's tough, man. I feel bad for Baker sometimes because it's his fourth coach in 3 years. They got to find some stability there, or maybe Baker's just not the guy.
All fair points. Could be the case, man. When it comes to Baker Mayfield, I know this from studying for fantasy football drafts this offseason. He's got the easiest quarterback to defensive matchups in all of football out of all the quarterbacks. He's got the weapons everywhere. Supposedly, PFF says the offensive line's elite. I don't see how that offense fails. Defensively, we talked about the corners, and you have a pass rusher that's arguably the best in the league. That's recipe for success. I have more questions about the Ravens on offense and the Steelers on offense than I do about the Browns. I'm telling you, Dog Pound, I see you in the playoffs. It might very well be right after you bite off all your nails, going down to the wire to the final weeks of the season, maybe even to the final seconds of the season. That could be the case, but I see them in the playoffs. Dog Pound in for me.
All right. All right.
Oh, man. And the fourth team in that division, for now, the Bengals. They're excited to have – finally, they have change. Last year, a new head coach. This year, Joe Burrow on the field. A.J. Green back in the lineup. Joe Mixon gets his extension. It seems like they have so many good receivers to throw the ball all over the yard, to be honest with you. They might as well just throw receivers on the field and forget running the ball. I mean, if what it takes, go look at Arizona or something. The line, yeah, that might be why they don't. The offensive line is not very good. Bottom 3 in the league. And if you look at the defense, I see their secondary growing, to be honest with you. I like it, the pieces, but it may take a couple of seasons. I don't think much of their front 7 at this point in time. They're in a tough division. We just talked about the other 3 teams that are playoff caliber or in the hunt. So the Bengals, they might continue to get pushed around in the trenches by all 3 of their rivals here. And both of us only gave them a couple of wins this year. That does not mean the future isn't bright. There's just more pieces to add from my perspective. I know I gave him a couple wins. You actually – didn't you give him 4?
Yeah, I bumped him up to 4. I do. I really like Joe Burrow, man. I think he's going to be a great prospect. Not as high as some of what I'm hearing out there in the sports world. I think he's definitely a solid long-term NFL starter, more like a Alex Smith, not really a Tony Romo. I think Tony Romo always has and always will be underrated. I don't think he gets that high. I think he's more of an Alex Smith. Alex Smith kind of got praised. I mean, he got a lot of help. You know, luckily he was with a winning franchise. I really liked him a lot in the years with San Francisco. I feel like they kind of just asked him to do too much. I think they should realize who you have at quarterback and try to build more pieces around him. I just don't know if I can trust Cincy as an organization to do that for Burrow. I mean, you always see them in early rounds, always drafting high, always drafting high. And who knows? Maybe they turn some things around. Like you said, man, they got a lot of good skill positions filled there. Super talented wide receiver core, and they added another T. Higgins that was a baller for Clemson. So it just seems like they don't really have the structure there. I mean, before 2019, a lot of their coaches, they never really held a coordinator position. A lot of them were positional coaches. And Burrow, as much as I like his talent and I like the kid, I mean, you're talking about one of the greatest college quarterback years ever, but I do owe a lot of that to Joe Brady, who's in Carolina now. That's why I have the Panthers kind of ruining some playoff seasons for a lot of teams, especially in that division. But, I mean, he threw from a clean pocket almost all the time. You're talking about LSU breaking the record for how many players they had drafted in this draft. So a lot of NFL bodies there. You mentioned O-line for Cincy. I don't know if they're going to be able to protect him, man. They got some crazy D lines in that division, not only in that division, but everywhere else in this league. It's going to be his first time. Short season. I don't know, man. I think Burrow's going to be running a lot, and it's going to be a lot on his shoulders in the future years. I think he's smart enough, and I think he's had great coaches around him in college and looks like a good, steady family to keep progressing, and that's why I see him as a long-term starter. But this season's going to be rough, and hopefully Cincy kind of pulls something because they haven't shown me that they can kind of protect their assets in the future. I mean, easy schedule, it seems. Again, it seems like Cleveland, you know, they have decent home games, but those away games are going to be rough. I like their additions, but they added a lot of different free agents to kind of fill that defense. A lot of corners. Seems like all the Minnesota Vikings corners went to Cincinnati. What's up with that? Hey, you know, can't really get worse in a season from last year, but with that division improving so much, it's going to be hard to see Joe Burrow shine. But I do give him 4 wins.
Cool, man. That's a little generous, in my opinion. You're talking about the pass rushers. That's Myles Garrett, T.J. Watt, Calais Campbell in your face early and often for 8 quarters a year. That's not going to be fun for Burrow year one. And I know the schedule. You know, your last place, you play a last place schedule kind of thing. For whatever it's worth, even if it's a season without fans or whatever, the Bengals, they have back-to-back road games, 3 different points in their schedule. Too tough for a young team, a young coach, a young quarterback. So, yeah, this isn't a surprise to anybody that we don't really have a lot of wins here for the Bengals. But I think most of us can agree if the franchise continues in the direction they appear to be going, that they may be back to relevance pretty soon here. All right, man. Thanks, diehards. We'd love to hear what you have to say about each division, not just the one you're listening to here. Let us know your thoughts. Are we crazy about something? Are we missing something? Probably not. But hey, let us hear you out. Holler at us on Twitter, on Facebook. And yeah, the NFL season is here.